Newcastle 1, Arsenal nil. Arsenal's first loss of the season comes in a very controversial way. Arsenal on the receiving end of not one, but maybe two really poor decisions from VAR and leave St. James's Park with nothing. There's so much to talk about that I can't even get my brain unscrambled because I want to talk about the goal that Newcastle scored. I want to talk about the fact that Bruno Guimaraes should have been sent off um, in the first half. We should have been playing against 10 men. But the most alarming thing to me today was Arsenal's inability to create clear-cut chances, Arsenal's inability to get shots off, the lack of instinctiveness in the box from Arsenal. Those things concern me the most because Arsenal were the better side in the first half, probably just shading it. Newcastle had done pretty much nothing. We're winning our duels. The tactics seemed okay. But what really stood out to me was that our best attackers, or the players getting the best looks in the box, were our DM and our left back. And that was the same thing that happened against Sheffield. And when I asked questions about that, people acted like I was just being negative. They were like, "Jessica, we won 5-0. Why are you asking questions? We won the game. We won the game." Against one of the worst teams in the Premier League at one point, Declan Rice and Zinchenko were getting into the box. They were creating all of our chances, and our wingers were doing nothing. They were defending and they were creating some chances for players that we don't want on the end of crosses. We want our wingers on the end of these crosses. We want our wingers coming in for these cutbacks. I don't want Martinelli and Saka playing fullback. I want them in and around the box creating things. And so beyond the VAR decisions, which obviously we'll talk about, and the goal that Newcastle scored, Arsenal have an issue in attack. It's been obvious since the beginning, and we lost our first game, so now we can talk about it. All this, "Oh, we haven't lost a game in the Premier League, so why are people being so negative?" We get to talk about it now because it's bit us in the ass. More than the goal that we gave away, not being able to capitalize on decent play in the first half is our biggest issue. Even when we wanted to score a goal at the end, we couldn't even hit the gas. We couldn't even create chances from there. We can't clear the first man on our crosses. We can't get into dangerous positions. Our players the ball back when they're in good positions in the half spaces. They cut back and pass it backwards to Jorginho. Then Jorginho passes it back to Ben White. Then Ben White passes it back to Jorginho. Then Jorginho passes it to Tomiyasu. Then Tomiyasu passes it to Martinelli. Then Martinelli passes it back to whoever, and we just go in the horseshoe of death. This Arsenal team reminds me so much of the 2020-2021 team. Good team, defends well, cannot score goals for their life, cannot create clear cut chances for their life. And I don't think it's as simple as just getting Odegaard back into form and getting Jesus back on the pitch. We have an issue with the attack. We have an issue creating clear cut chances. So, of course, there were big moments in the game that went against us. You can blame Ray all you want, but if we create a clear cut chance and we score a goal, maybe we're not in that scenario. Maybe it doesn't just take one chance for Newcastle to score a goal and then the game is done. So we're going to talk about all of it. Make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Now, I want to start off by saying that I do think that there was one maybe small bright spot today. And I want to be very, very clear that I don't think not a single person should be talking about Kai Havertz today. I know there'll be somebody in the comment section saying 65 million pounds down the drain, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe in the grand scheme of things, he wasn't the best signing. But on today, he was our best attacker. He was the only person getting balls into the box. He started to really grow into the game. And quite frankly, if maybe Martinelli or Saka had showed up today, maybe we would have been better. So this is not a Kai Havertz day. This is not a, "Oh my gosh, we spent the money on Kai Havertz day." It's just not. We need to figure out what's going on with this attack because the games, the margins, they're too fine now, and they're not gonna always go in our direction. We can't just win every game 1-0, away from home. We've been doing all right. We did it against Everton. We did it against Crystal Palace. We barely got away with it against Chelsea. But my God, today, when I tell you that we did not look like scoring at all, that is my biggest concern from today. We're going to concede. You can't always keep a clean sheet. We're going to concede. But if you can't score goals, you're not going anywhere. And so Arsenal have went way too far in the other direction. We're much better defensively, but all it takes is one lapse in concentration and boom, you are out of the game. You are out of the game. Arteta needs to figure out the attack. And I don't think it's just as simple as getting your best players back. I genuinely think we have a systematic issue. Let's see what you guys are saying. The Mad Saga says it's always a Kai Havertz day. Not today. Not today. You guys are talking to each other. Samuel says, I'm very disappointed, very angry. We will not. We played a game with 8 men. Saka was not there. Kai beginning for a red card. Eddie just being Eddie. Kai didn't do anything wrong today. In fact, he got stuck in. So he got a yellow card. But beyond that, he's not like he got sent off. So what did Kai actually do wrong today beyond be probably our most dangerous player? He created chances at the end. Nobody did anything. Like, to me, the most missing players were Saka and Martinelli. Now we can have a conversation whether that's about the midfield, and our inability to gain access into central spaces. They're not being fed properly, whatever. But for me, we are back in 2020, 2021, where we cannot pass the ball in between the lines. We cannot, our players do not move. They are all stuck. They are stagnant. It is very, it's weird. Like, it's really weird. Here to there says, fact, Jess, Arteta disaster class. Our attack is dreadful tactically, building around our 2 worst players. Paul says, ball was out, foul on Gabriel, handball by Joe Linton, offside by Gordon. Say what you want, but that was a robbery. The thing about it is that I can accept all of that as the truth. I'm not sure that I'm 100% on board with the idea that, because I didn't see the ball. Like, I saw the shots that they showed for us, that the ball was out of play. It did look out of play. It did. Like, I saw it. It looked out of play. Without seeing it from like a bird's eye view, it's hard to see because at different angles it can look like whether it's hanging off or not, the ball. Depending on how you look at it, that's a foul by Gabrielle or Gabrielle is going down soft. It depends. Like, it's not clear enough. But if you take all of that away, we left that game on the game was basically on a knife edge the entire time because we couldn't make anything of the dominance that we did have in the first half. And really, Newcastle, they never had us pinned back. They didn't create that many clear-cut chances. They were really toothless themselves, but they got one chance and they put it away, and we couldn't do shit. So I hear that. A lot of people will say that we were robbed. I do think that, you know, the biggest problem for me was Bruno Guimaraes not being sent off, because for me, that's clear and obvious. He wasn't going for the ball. After the fact, he hit Jorginho in the face with an elbow. That's a red card. It just is. And then minutes after that, he kicks the ball straight into one of our players. It's, that for me is like clear and obvious. The other stuff, I'm very disappointed in the fact that we just switched off. You have to play to the whistle. I know that the players thought the ball was out, but the fact that everybody stopped, put their hands up, and then it just takes that split second to not be switched on. Gordon runs right behind Saliba. They cross the ball in. Maybe Raya should do better. He's flailing at it. He doesn't get to it. Boom, goal, game done. Because we're not going to score a goal from there. So for me, we can there's the things that we can't control, which is the referees. We know that. We cannot control the referees. They're horrendous. Every week there's something, whether it's against us or somebody else, that's egregious, and it feels like it's the reason why you don't win a game or why you don't get the points or why you don't get the rub of the green. But what we can control is how we attack and how we make the most out of our dominance. And a consistent problem for Arsenal has been creating clear-cut chances, and it nipped us in the bud this time. We weren't able to turn it up in the last couple of minutes and nick a goal. We weren't able to get the penalty. We weren't able to get the corner kick. We weren't able to do any of that stuff. And so today we were exposed in that way. And so we can always talk about the smaller things and compartmentalize. We can do that. That's fine. But I'm more concerned about not being able to create clear-cut chances, because that is what we can control. We cannot control the referees. We know that one day we're going to get the call, the other day we're not, you know? Um, and that's just kind of where I am with it. Anton Dunn says, I think the Saudis are making a quick transfer as we speak. Boy says, we need someone who can play instead of Saka. Need a Nico Williams type of player soonish. I don't know. Do you guys, I mean, Saka and Martinelli were, it depends on how you look at things. If you think that it's more just the fact that they're not getting good enough service. You'll say that they were, ineffective or isolated. But then if you look at what they did do when they did get on the ball, they were really ineffective and poor, So for me, it's concerning to see two of we don't have a single attacking player in form, you know? That's it reminds me a lot of when we had like Aubameyang and Willian and Lacazette out there, and none of them could score goals. None of them were in form. It was just like our attack was just like not doing anything. And so I'm worried because it's not even like they're getting loads of chances, but even when they do get opportunities, they're not instinctive enough. They're not doing the things that like inform and confident attackers do. And it's worrying. It is worrying. Philip says the goal was a goal in my opinion. I watched it again and nobody is blaming the guy who was 90% responsible. Shamed right backs everywhere, but not running out to Gordon to close down the cross. There was a calamity of errors for that goal. And that's why like I'm kind of on the same page as Philip here, is that I'm having a very difficult time just saying, you know what, well, the referees got it wrong or Raya should have done this. Because the reality is like Gabriel whiffs the ball, they pass it through, they get it out to the wing. Nobody in a red shirt runs out toward it. Everybody has their hands up, they switch off. There's so many different things that happen for that goal to come about, where for me, it's just poor play from Arsenal all around, and you have to stay switched on, you have to play to the whistle. Not playing to the whistle is such like a training ground thing. In America, in rec, AYSO, when you're a child, they tell you to play to the whistle. Do not just stop, put your hand up, think it's offside, whatever. We did that. We switched off, boom, goal. It's just that simple at the highest level. So there's too many different things that went wrong in that for me to blame it on one specific thing. And I can talk about VAR all day long, but we were so poor in the attack that it just doesn't matter. It's not like we had all these chances and we scored goals. Like we're toothless. That's top. That's top of the docket. That's it for me because I was speaking about it against Sheffield and people yelled at me for being negative because we had beat them 5-0. I'm like, "No, I don't think your DM and your left back should be your most creative and effective players in the final third or the people that are dictating play there. I think, your creative midfielders, your eights need to be creating for your wingers and your forward. Like we don't do that. Our eights are the workhorses, our DM and our left back are creative players, and our attackers are fullbacks. Like what are we doing? Like it does not make sense. We really need to figure out the attack. It is so like it does not make sense to me what we're doing anymore. Samuel says there was a clear foul on Gabby. I'm sure PGMOL will apologize for this and move on. I'll be honest. I'm not sure that I think that it's a clear and obvious error that Gabrielle was fouled. I think Gabrielle also has a reputation for going down really easy as well. Like he's somebody that tries to buy fouls a lot, and it frustrates me because lately he's not getting the calls and they're in on goal, they're running in. Like I would just I would say that it's inconclusive whether or not Gabrielle was fouled. What I do think is more, what needs to be shown a little bit more is whether or not that ball was actually out. And from the angle that they showed, it looked like it was out. But if they look from an overhead view, which I'm not sure if they have that angle, maybe that angle shows something a little bit different. So I think that, our players need to switch the fuck on and stop being soft in the box. Stop trying to ask them the we got too wrapped up in trying to buy the fouls and all that kind of stuff. Just defend, just defend, stay switched on. It was crazy. Saturdays equals youth says the attack has regressed from last season. It really has. Like, I don't really think anybody can say that they feel confident about what we're doing in the attack. And it was like, okay, once Martinelli and Saka come back, it's going to be fine. Once Gabriel Jesus comes back, it's going to be fine. But the thing is, if that was the case, even if it's just a case of get Jesus in, get Nketiah out, we should still be creating chances and Eddie should be missing them. I think if it was just a case of, oh, Eddie's not clinical enough, then maybe just be getting chances but missing him. He's not even I don't even think he had a shot today, Eddie. We had 1 shot on goal, so and Newcastle is a good team defensively, but we've struggled to score against everyone from open play. So, again, I I think it's worth a conversation. Me and James did the show on what's wrong with the Arsenal attack, and there were a lot of comments that were like, "There's nothing. We're one of the top scorers in the league. We're one of this, one of that." And I'm just like, are we not really watching with our eyes right now? Like, it's really good that Arsenal have found other ways to score goals, and we're good on corners and things like that. But that's going to run out. Like, we need to be able to score goals from open play, and our attackers need to be the ones putting the ball in the back of the net. And my God, can our left back not be our forward? Tomiyasu is a great player, but I don't want him being our striker. I don't want that. I think that's a flaw in Arteta's system that our left back is our number 10, it's our left mid, is our striker, is our left winger. I think it's a flaw. I think there's something broken with the system, and we got caught out today. We got caught out today. We did. It to me, it's too much of that. And yeah, when you don't score goals and you don't create attacks, when the team comes down one time, if you don't get the rub of the green from the referee, you leave with nothing. And I don't think that was a game where Arsenal deserved to lose. Like, I don't think it was a game where we were thoroughly outplayed by Newcastle. I think it could have went one goal for us, one goal for them, or equal, 0-0, but it didn't fall to us. It didn't fall to us. Amon said across 2 matches this week against West Ham and Newcastle, we have 4 shots on target. We are not good in attack, and it's mostly down to Arteta's unbalanced midfield and lack of chemistry in attack. Nito says, I think we have to look at our new players. We finished second and didn't really improve besides Rice and Raya. And like, the thing that confused, like, I think I was having this conversation with my friends in group chat, and our system is so heavily based around the players and what their individual qualities are, rather than, okay, these are my principles of play, and so I'm going to build a system and tell you guys to do things based on where I want the ball to go. It's like our system is based on Saka, the system is based on what Martinelli does, the system is based on what Zinchenko does. And so when those players are not there, or they're not playing well, or we try to replace them, nothing seems to make sense anymore. And no, if the system was built around Partey and Zinchenko at the base of midfield, and so now that those players are like, Zinchenko is out of form and Partey is not there, now the system is based on what Rice does. And so I think Arteta's system is broken because it shouldn't be based around the player's individual qualities. It should be based on what his principles of play are. And no matter who's in those positions, they should be kind of doing the same things. You can alter it because, some players don't do the same things. But if your style of play is to like get it to the wings and cross it in for a big striker, let's say, like, for example, you can do that in multiple ways. It doesn't just have to be just the winger doing it. It could be overlapping fullback or whatever. But what I think is, it's just everything is just based on the players, and the system was very much like, oh, well, Partey works with Zinchenko. Okay, that works. So now that those players are not there, the system doesn't work anymore because Rice doesn't do the same things. So how do you get those balls in between the lines that Partey was giving us without Partey actually having to be there? How do you coach that into, there's other ways to get the ball in between the lines that's not just a Thomas Partey. You know what I mean? There's different ways of getting the ball into zone 14 without it just being about a straight line pass from Partey to Jesus. But that's what we were doing last season. There's different ways of getting Martinelli into the half space that's not just Xhaka passing it to Martinelli in that space. But it doesn't seem like Arteta can figure that out with the players that he has. Those players have to be there in order for it to happen. And if Timber was who everything was about to be built around, I'm sorry, you should not be building your system around a fullback or a center back. Your system should be based on trying to get your best attackers in the best positions possible to score goals. Like, our system is based on DMs and fucking fullbacks. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So if Arteta's whole game plan is to get Saka and Martinelli in the half space, he has to figure out ways to do that without it involving Partey if he's not there, Zinchenko being there. You know, like, we need to figure out different ways of doing it. Right now it's invert and inshallah. So right now it's invert and inshallah. And it's not working. It's not working. Yo-Yo says this is more on the makeup of the squad than the quality of the players, in my opinion. I don't. Yeah, I'm not concerned about the quality of the players in our squad. I'm actually very comfortable with the quality that we have. I don't think we're getting the most out of the quality that we have. I don't think they're being coached in like Arteta basically just coaches to invert on the left-hand side, and that's how we're gonna get forward, how we're gonna build play. And so whether it's Zinchenko or Tommy, those 2 players are the most important players in the system. They pop up everywhere and they have a free role. If that's the only way that you know how to build up, we're in problems, baby. We're in problems. But we have a very quality squad with a lot of really good players. Arteta's just not getting the best out of them. And so it's not just about buy more, buy more, buy more. He has a very expensive squad. We looked at it. Arsenal squad is one of the most valuable squads in Europe. So he needs to figure out a way to get the most out of that group. And what are your principles? What are you trying to do? You know, what is your game plan and how can you make sure that no matter who's out there, those principles are intact? What is our style of play? Because I our style of play last season, we thought we knew what it was, but our style of play was basically get it to Zinchenko and let him chef it up. Get Partey to pass it in between the lines. You know, what is our style of play? I'm confused now. I don't know what it is anymore. Brett Brown says, "Should we get him out now and get a new coach?" I don't know. I'm not really in the um let's see. Let's I don't really know if it's I'm at the Arteta out thing yet. We like I'm not sure I'm really there. But he needs to figure out the attack. Arteta says Arteta has to let go of Jorginho if he wants to make his current team work. Not a single one of his attributes is useful in our attack. Rice not cute enough. Get him forward either. Fair enough. Kasi says I think our injuries are beginning to affect our team. Personal availability is becoming an issue. Yeah, if the issue is just that he needs his best players available to him, then he's in trouble. Like I think an elite manager can still get more than one shot on goal despite not having his best players available to him. I think it's a cop out to tell like, okay, Arteta, no matter what, like he has to have his best players available or that's it. He still had Saka, he still had Martinelli, he had Rice out there. You know, I'm having like a hard time saying like, oh yeah, well, we just have to wait for Jesus and Partey to be fit. You know? Like that's not enough. It's not. We said when Martinelli and Saka were available that everything would click. It's not. You know, so we just kind of need to like do a little bit more, I think. I think we have to ask more questions of Arteta's tactics and how he set up the team versus just like, okay, yeah, well, you know, if he doesn't have his best players, then it's okay for everything to fall apart. More like what I'm saying, like more than one shot on goal. Does that make sense? Like one, so because we don't have Partey or Jesus, one shot on goal makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? Chris Fraser says, my biggest issue with Arteta or Mikel is that it's always been that he doesn't get the best out of what he has. I don't see that changing. DJ Polar says Arteta is going in on PGO Moel. He's going to accept the fine. I mean, he has to blame somebody, doesn't he? Keenan says, we are about to drop to fifth. Big questions need to be asked. I mean, yeah, we're about to drop to fifth. Here's the thing is I said if we lost, it wouldn't be a good look because then we'd be in fifth, right? And I think that's where we are, right? We're in fifth now. Let me see. Yeah, we're in third, but we'll probably finish fifth, right? At the end of this game week. Here's the thing though, you guys, like it's still really close. So like even if we're in fifth, we won't be that far off the top. The problem that we have here is I'm not so much it's not so much about the table for me right now. It's what I'm watching in front of my eyeballs. The table is what it is. Like it's so close up there that Liverpool have already lost like what, one or two games. They lost to Spurs, they drew to like Brighton or they lost to Brighton, one of those, and they're still right in the thick of the title race. So we'll play Burnley next week, and then if we win that, and then some other people lose, like it's so close. So for me, it's not so much about like the table per se; it's about what I'm seeing in front of my eyeballs. And my eyeballs are telling me that we have a problem, and everybody just saying like, okay, well, when Partey comes back, when Jesus comes back, everything will come back into, it'll look fine. It won't. The system is not right. This is not how it should look. You should be able to plug and play players in and still get similar results. Right now, Arteta is very much so like, if Saka's not in there, if Odegaard's not in there, if Zinchenko's not in there, he's cooked. That's a problem. Chris Fraser says, my biggest issue with Mikel. Okay, I already read that one. And to Nito says, Fabio was top assist in Portugal when we signed him. Havertz, 65 million in EPL experience. Trusha should be ahead of both. Our spine is gone with Jesus and Partey gone. And both of them are injury prone. And you spent 100 million on Declan Rice. So what was the Bella? Bella, Bella, Bella. What's the problem? Come here. You spent 100 million on Declan Rice. So what was the plan if you knew that you weren't going to play Partey all the time? That's on Arteta still. Here to there says Arteta's post-match interview. Wow, he was about to come unglued. Unreal. I don't even know if I want to see it. Saf says Rice must regret coming to Arsenal. Arteta will shortly lose the dressing room, and then our good players will start to put in transfer requests. Now, see, when people tell me that I'm being dramatic and overreacting, I'm not, because this is a total overreaction. Rice regretting coming to Arsenal, we're like, it's our first, like this. Why would he regret coming to Arsenal this early on? And Arteta's not going to lose the dressing room in 5 minutes. Like, we're not United. It's not. There's nothing to lose the dressing room over. He just needs to figure out the attack and get the balance in midfield. This is what I call an overreaction. Putting in a transfer request, get real. He's been one of our best players. He's playing in Champions League. Like, that's an overreaction. Tamelo says, Jess, thoughts on Fabio Vieira? He came on, he didn't make much of a difference. Nobody did that came on, though, so, Fabio Vieira will come on against Fulham, do well, come on against Newcastle, ghost, so you can say you want to sell him. Selling Fabio Vieira, getting rid of him is not going to solve the bigger issue, which is our attack. Fabio Vieira is a number 10, being asked to play in a number 8 all the time. I don't think Fabio Vieira, Trossard, Havertz, these players are trash. I really don't. I don't think the manager is getting anywhere near as much out of them as he could. So thoughts on Fabio Vieira? He sucked just like everybody else that came on. He sucked just like everybody else who came on. Keenan says teams have yet to play. Yeah, teams have yet to play. I get that, but like, so if we're 5th, but we're still like, 4 points off the top, like, I don't know. I think it's so tight up. I don't know if anybody's really paying attention to everything else, but this is probably going to be the first season in a long time where it's going to be a much, much closer title race. Like, it's not going to be like Man City have already lost 2 games. You see what I'm saying? So to me, and they're top of the table right now. So yeah, teams still have to play, but other teams will drop points, will get points. Like, we've played all of the top 6 except for Liverpool so far, and Newcastle. Other teams have yet to play each other, So I would just say relax on all the like, we're falling 5th, we're gonna be 5th. Liverpool were 5th like a couple of days ago. Like, relax, it's still really close. Beat Burnley, other teams drop points, and we're right back to where we need to be. Now, it's still about the attack for me, Let's see. Vernon says, just talk about Jorginho. He is what he is. Like, he didn't pass forward. I don't really know if anything was necessarily 100% his fault, but I'm starting to look less at the individuals and look more at the system. I'm having a really difficult time looking at the system and not like looking at the players and not looking at the way that we're playing, because no matter who's in there, nothing is changing. If it's Rice by himself, if it's Jorginho at the 6, if it's Rice in the 8, if it's Havertz and Odegaard, nothing really changes it. So even if we focus solely on individual performances and say, okay, Jorginho was shit. Let's just say that. Let's say Jorginho was shit. I hate him. I don't want him at the club anymore. Terrible signing, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't have bought him. Okay, so we got that to the side. By the way, like, that's the same narrative every single game. Like, whatever. Why is it that everybody that plays there doesn't look as good? Why is it that no matter who's out there, whether Jorginho's out there, whether it's just Rice, whether it's Havertz, whether it's Vieira, whether it's Odegaard, whether it's whoever, whether it's Trossard, whether it's Martinelli, whether it's Saka, whether it's Nketiah, why do we not look like scoring consistently no matter who it is? I'm beyond the individual analysis. We can do it, but it's boring because every week it's going to be, well, when Jorginho does okay, then the people that hate Jorginho are going to wait for him not to play as good to stick the boot into him. Are we not tired yet? Jorginho's not good enough. Probably shouldn't have bought him, but he has good games and bad games. Are we over it now? Like, I'm over it now. What is wrong with the system? And why is it that no matter who's in there, we don't look good? Because you could have taken Jorginho out today and just put Rice there and we still would have gotten cooked. We still would have lost, you know? So for me, it's just a little bit more difficult to look at individual performances at this stage because it's not like when somebody else is in there, it looks so much better. P Trim says, strongly agree with you, Jess. We need other ways to win besides Saka, Odie, Martinelli. High Tech Jay says the system that won 5-0 a week ago. Again, it was Sheffield. They're the worst team in the league. They have 1 point. Let's be serious. Let's actually like sit down, get a drink, relax. Let's sit here and talk for a second. When I told you guys that we needed to just like celebrate the Sheffield win, the hat trick, and just kind of take it for what it is, I meant that because a win is a win. You can only beat who's in front of you. But Sheffield have 1 point. They're horrendous. They're one of the worst teams I've ever seen play at the Emirates before. So saying that the system is not broken because we beat one of the worst sides in the world, like, let's be for real. Let's talk about how we looked against Crystal Palace. How do we look against the teams that are not necessarily the worst? How do we look against Everton? How did you feel about that game? How do we look against Crystal Palace? How did you feel about that game? How do we look against Forest? How do we look against, Fulham? How do we look against Spurs? How do we look against Chelsea? Isn't that more of an indication of the system versus the one time that we smashed up a team that's horrendous? Zinchenko and Declan Rice were our main like attackers in that game. Saka and Martinelli didn't do anything in those games. In that game against Sheffield. That was a red flag to me right then. And so now we played against a better team away from home and we're toothless and people want to refer back to the Sheffield game. That's the outlier. The outlier is the Sheffield game. Who we've been for the majority of the season is what we've been against Crystal Palace, against Forest, against Fulham, those games. Everton, which is good defensive side, but not scoring anywhere near enough, not creating enough chances, nowhere near enough. So don't talk to me about Sheffield. I don't care about that. That was last week. And I told you guys then that I thought we had an attacking problem. Like, and it's true, you know? Andrew says all below average performances against those teams. That's what the worry is. P Trim says we didn't play badly. We just never really looked like scoring. That's what we're having a conversation about. I'm not saying that we were an abomination. I have not once in this conversation said that I thought that we were horrendous or anything like that. I thought we were horrendous against West Ham. That was horrendous. Today, we weren't able to take advantage of the good play that we did have. So we left it on the margins, and the margins didn't go our way this time, like they did against Everton, like they did against Crystal Palace. They didn't go our way this time. And that's what happens when you can't take advantage of your good play. And Arsenal, we're not a team just trying to make it into the top 4. We're trying to do more than that. So we have to be much better. We have to be much better. We have to. Social Join says we didn't carve Sheffield open. Exactly. Like, I think it's important to be excited about wins when they happen, but also stay with your feet on the ground. It was Sheffield. We should be smashing them. Even against Bournemouth, we smashed them, but it wasn't like the goals were free flowing or anything like that. We got 2 penalties. We scored one off of like a free kick or like a corner, Ben White. And do we have any from open play? Maybe one, Saka. That was like one bit of good play. Like, all I'm saying is that like Arteta should be concerned about the fact that not a single one of our attackers are in form. We're not creating chances from open play. And despite being good defensively, all it takes is one slip up for the game to be beyond us at this stage. And if Rice doesn't decide he wants to win the game on his own, we don't beat Chelsea. We don't get anything away from home at Chelsea either. That was very much so like Rice taking that game by the horns. We even against City, like we only scored one goal. We had like one chance. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that we were horrendous today, but I think you have to I think you have to get something from your good play. And we didn't get anything. And I'm trying to understand whether it was, and I'm not saying we didn't deserve the penalties or anything. So if anybody's writing in the comments, but we deserve the penalties, yes, they're clear. They were stonewallers, whatever. I don't care. All I'm saying is that, like, Arteta should be concerned about the attack and concerned about the lack of balance in midfield. Yes, we probably got done on VAR. Bruno Guimaraes should have been sent off. That ball may have been out, and maybe you feel like Gabriel was fouled, but we can't control that. We can't control that. DJ Polar says Mikel needs to take the handbrake off. Let's talk football. Spoke about this to my friends the other day. The handbrake is very much so on this season. We're not playing with any sort of like fluidity or fun or. I talked about this before the game. I was like, do the players not look like they have like hands on their shoulders, just like pushing them down? Every game is like super stressful. Everybody's super serious. I'm like, where's the joy? Like last season at this stage, even when we lost to Man United, we still had so much joy, even though we lost that game. But every game we approached it the same. And even though, like, obviously we needed to tighten up at the back a little bit more, we were playing with a level of freedom that we're not playing with anymore. Our attackers are so stuck in these spots. They don't move, they don't switch positions, they don't do anything. And so it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. Adam says Saka and Odegaard are out of form. Partey and Xhaka were pivotal to last season's success, and they're both out. Rice is a beast, but Jorginho is a huge downgrade. I don't really want our whole season to be based around whether or not Thomas Partey is fit or not. If that's the case, if that's the case where Arteta's just waiting for Partey to be fit enough, we're gonna lose quite a few games in between there because history would tell you that he's not gonna be fit enough for the entire season. He's already missed the whole first quarter essentially. So I do believe that we will be better with Thomas Partey in the team. I do. I think we'd be better with Jesus in the team. But that's not a solution because both of those players tend not to be fit enough for for the majority of the season. So, Arteta needs to figure out a way to create clear-cut chances with the players that he has, despite not having some of his best players available to him. How do you get the ball into central areas without Thomas Partey and Zinchenko involved? That's the problem that he needs to solve. How does he get into the half spaces without Xhaka there? How do you do it? That's what he needs to figure out. He needs to that to me, that's more of the problem than anything. Because, like, yeah, you can wait for Partey to be fit, but the minute that you wait for him to be fit, you're just holding your breath until he gets injured again. And that's not to shit on him or anything like that, but it's just the truth. Up the Gun says you replace Xhaka with Havertz. Arteta needs to find a way to get us clicking and fast. Havertz was the only bright spot, but it's unfortunate because I'm like, so you're not going to even be able to keep him in that position because as soon as Odegaard gets fit, Havertz is going to go back to the left or go back to the bench. So how do you build upon what we saw with Havertz today? Because to me, that was the only positive of today is that we saw a more fluid, awake Havertz. Like he was winning his duels, he was trying to create things, and it wasn't perfect. He doesn't like it's not perfect, but just as soon as we were about to get Emil going, Emil got injured. Havertz may be on the cusp of gaining a little bit of form. Arteta needs to figure out a way to hone that and build upon that. If Odegaard comes straight back in and plays on that side, I feel like you'll lose it. So maybe Arteta needs to figure out a way to play Havertz and Odegaard together, but get Havertz on the right or operating more on the right hand side. I don't love the idea of moving Odegaard to the left, but it's up to Arteta to figure these things out. Because there to me, the only highlight today was that we saw Havertz looking a little bit better. Social Join says there's no handbrake. The players are not creative enough. It's not that deep. No, I definitely think there's a handbrake. I think if you believe that Saka and Martinelli don't have more about them in the final third, like they cannot create anything else, and it's just about them not being good enough, then I think you've watched two complete like you're not watching the same players that I've watched. There to me, there seems to be an emphasis on staying safe rather than allowing players to play their way. It's not I'm not even saying like Saka and Martinelli are the most creative players, but if you don't think that they're playing safe right now, you're watching a different game, I think. Aman says our squad building in midfield has been so poor. The staff says we are playing lackluster with no creativity in every single game. Recklin Dice says you need to understand that last season we had no expectations of winning. This season is different. So, like, then we need to stop putting this team on a pedestal. Like, yeah, of course the expectation is different. We're a good team. We've gotten to this point after 4 years under Mikel Arteta of spending so much money, and we missed out on top four, then we missed out on the title. Now we're in our fourth season with Mikel Arteta. Of course, there's going to be high expectations, and the players that are being paid £250,000 per week, £200 a week, like these players need to step up to that. They're playing at Arsenal, a big club. There's always going to be expectations on you. So, of course, there is. The season is different, but I don't expect that to mean that we can't just create a chance. Like, do you see what I'm saying? These players need to step up and, like, yeah, it was fun last season because there wasn't any expectations, but this is what separates players that are actually should be at Arsenal or not. Because Arsenal from here, like, there is no more project. There is no more, no expectations because Arteta's a new manager and these are young players. That's over. Arteta spent 200 million this past window. And so he's been backed like no other manager at Arsenal has been backed. He's had more time than no other manager has had time. Like, he just, for me, like, I mean, of course there's expectations, but this is what's going to separate the players that really should be at Arsenal or not. I'm seeing some players crumble a little bit. They're kind of shining away from the light. You can't just play well when the sun is shining and it's fun. Arsenal always have pressure on them. Ask Thierry Henry. Go sit down with Vieira and talk to him. Tell me, was there ever a game that they played where it was just fucking fun and they didn't have any expectations on them? I expect a little bit of growing pains, but not one shot on goal. That's not what I expect. Like, I get that the seasons are different. I don't need to understand anything. I understand that. Like, but we still need to step up from that. Arsenal spent money, like, step up, do your thing. They're better than this. Ismail says, take away the attacking inertia. It was discipline display by the boys. Newcastle no longer a pushover. Yeah, we played all right. We played all right. Like, we weren't bad. We didn't get the rub of the green. It didn't go our way. But I think we also are too, like, against West Ham, I was told that, well, the game just doesn't go your way sometimes. Now I'm hearing, well, we were fine against Newcastle, it just didn't go our way this time. If that's just the case, then I'll shut down my channel and we don't even need to talk anymore because obviously it's more than just it didn't go our way this time. Why didn't it go our way? Nicholas says the changes should have been made sooner. David said Wednesday that we should compete for every trophy. We aren't going to win the Premier League or the Champions League. Aim for top four and FA Cup to be realistic. City pool 1 and 2 by striker January. Finished third, to be honest. Johnny says there's big expectations because Arsenal was about to win the league last season. Like, what does that mean? Like, we have bigger expectations. So that means that the players are expected to step up. We can't continuously give them excuses for not stepping up. Like, this is Arsenal. You're being paid a lot. This is a big club. This is not Brighton. This is not West Ham. This is not whatever club you came from. This is a club that has the expectation to win things. And so far, I've seen 1, 2, 3 players on a regular basis really act like they understand what it means. And one of them just got here in August. Like, so come on. Recklin Dice says, stop twisting my point, Jess. You're making a straw man argument and it's blatant for all to see. Okay. Does everybody think that I'm not making a point by saying that the players need to step up? And we understand that the expectations have changed, but that doesn't really mean that it's okay for what we've seen. Like, I don't think I am. I think people want the expectations to be lower and to always have like some sort of thing to back up on. Like, it's a young team, they're stepping up for the first time. Like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm making any straw man argument. We weren't good enough today. We weren't poor. We weren't awful. We weren't good enough. And the VAR calls didn't go in our direction, but what we could change, what we could, do ourselves, we were poor at, so what straw man argument am I making? DJ Polar says both things can be true. Players need to step up and perform, and Mikel needs to make adjustments. Exactly. Like these these aren't just young players anymore. Jack Wilson says there's an agenda against Arsenal. EPL knows that, and it's evident for all to see. Blaze says if we can't perform with the expectation of pressure, that means that we are not ready for the title race. Players we're signing new contracts in the summer, so they need to be able to step up. I mean, it's both. It's Arteta needs to figure out the balance and stuff like that, but the players also need to show up. I didn't love the body language from Saka and Martinelli today. I thought both of them uh they were ineffective, and then when things didn't really go their way, they kind of just bitched at their teammates and turned around and did this, and it's just like, okay. So yeah. John Wick says, I think you really don't know about football. Charlie says, no character, soft, soft, soft team. Man, come on. Why was our captain letting someone push him around? Blank says, other teams have had bad calls against them this season. There's no agenda. The rest are just terrible. Tipo says, Saka and Martinelli have been so shit. They were ineffective today. Jonathan says, yellow should have been reds. They're getting away with murder all match. That definitely, I think they should have had a red card for sure. Bruno Guimaraes should have been sent off for sure. Up the Gun says, we all know the refs are whack. Don't let them decide the games. Put the ball in the back of the net. I agree. You can't control the refs, but you can control other things, and we didn't do those things well. So, Jordan Williams says, I expect them to wake up. The attack was piss poor. The battle in the middle was decent, but the attack, my word. And that's kind of the thing is like, we weren't bad defensively, but if you leave it that close, you are susceptible to making one mistake. The margins were very fine today. You can say it's just because Newcastle were a better team. Let's just say Newcastle are just a good team and it just didn't go our way. We're going to have this conversation again, and it'll take until we get about halfway through the season. People will be saying, oh, Jessica, you're making a good point about the attack. It really isn't clicking. It's not just because Newcastle were good. We're not good enough in the final third. Like I know what I'm saying. Like people can say I don't know what I'm talking about all day long. Like this always happens. And then people are like, oh yeah, you're right. It's just when you call it out early and people don't want to believe it and ignore obvious things, it always comes back. So I'm okay with looking like the deluded, doesn't understand football fan right now because people thought Sheffield meant something. It didn't mean anything. We weren't really that good in attack on that game. And it was very strange that Zinchenko and Declan Rice were doing all the creative shit. And Zinchenko was having a free roll and arriving in the box instead of Havertz or ESR. Havertz and ESR were playing fucking DM. And Saka and Martinelli were creating chances for Havertz and ESR and Zinchenko. It didn't make fucking sense. And so it didn't make sense today either. Like it just, come on now. John Wick says the season was supposed to be like last season, but with Arsenal winning the league. I think this season we wanted to see Arsenal get better. And early days it wasn't really clear to see whether or not we were better or not. I still kind of think that we're different, and it's not really that clear whether we're not like we're so much worse because our results have been okay and we played against some of the more difficult sides. So I think like a whole half season I think would be a better, enough to see whether it's just we're different or we're worse. But I think people are more concerned that they're not seeing consistent attacking performances. In fact, we've only had one good attacking performance, and that was against PSV, where the goals were coming from open play. We were connecting, we were fluid. That's one of like 15 games so far. So I think it's becoming more of a conversation, which is fine. I think it's okay to have conversations about this kind of stuff. P Trim says players need to step up. Undoubtedly, champions take the game by the throat and find a way. Nuances of Faith says, so Havertz looked like a great signing according to some. What am I missing? Again, we don't need to be, binary and like over the top. I've not seen anybody say that Havertz has been a fantastic signing or anything like that. People are recognizing that he had a decent game today. Trying to say overall, he's probably on the more negative side of, like, was it a good signing or not? Because it's only one game where he looked like he was doing stuff. But just because I don't love the signing doesn't mean I'm gonna pretend like I didn't see a decent performance today from him, and I thought he was one of our better performers, so Arteta needs to build upon that because, again, the signing needs to work. It has to, like, it has to, so Arteta has to figure out a way to if Havertz is only good off of the right-hand side, then he's got to figure out a way to get Havertz in that team on the right-hand side. You know? Like, so I don't think anybody is I've not seen a single person say that they feel like Havertz has been an amazing signing today. I feel like people are just recognizing the truth, which is Havertz actually played pretty well today and was probably the only shining light. Jonathan says, "Good point. Ball in the back of the net. We could have been better for sure." Let's see. Hall R says, "Arteta only has balls for dropping certain players, but a wimp when it comes to others." Andrew said, "Time is running out for Arteta. This is the very last season for a trophy. No more excuses." Well, we already went out of the Carabao Cup and everybody said it wasn't important, but I knew it's going to be difficult to win the Premier League or the Champions League. In fact, like, I could like, if I had to put money on it, I would say we're not gonna win either. Not because we're not a good team, but because it's so hard, so maybe the FA Cup will take seriously, because we need silverware, are we at I would at least like to see us make a deep run in something and not just go out in the very early stages. Get to Wembley, I don't know. Social Join says, "Saka and Martinelli face up to 3 players every time because the CMs are not a threat to break up double ups. This midfield is not good in attack." Finally, we're having a little bit of the conversation. Saka, Martinelli are constantly double, triple teamed, and that's going to leave somebody open. That's going to leave somebody open. That's where your eights come in. I think there's no point in playing double eights if neither one of them are going to be able to be a threat in the box, make late runs, any of that. What happens is, like, Declan Rice tries, but he's not. That's not really his best position. Havertz is so, like, deep. He's not really making those threatening runs, and, like, then what you see is, like, Zinchenko or Tommy making late runs into the box. It's like, that doesn't really make sense to me. So, yeah, if Saka and Martinelli are always being constantly triple teamed, then who's open and why is it the case that our left back is making those ghost runs? Because if I'd like, Zinchenko and Tomiyasu are not goal threats. Like, even at left back, it's not like they're Tierney. Tierney was like a left back with goal threat. They don't have goal threats. So what is it? Like, what is it? Nito says, "We can't overreact. Newcastle is a good team, and the goal was from a VAR check with 3 checks. It was very even." It was. It's not so much about, like, we were gonna lose a game at some point, and it's come against a good side, and we were away from home, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying Arteta out. I've never said that, not once on this stream. So, but it can't just be, "It didn't go our way. Let's not talk about it," because we did that with West Ham. We I think we want to sweep things under the rug. I'm not saying we should go pull Arteta out, get the signs out, and all that kind of stuff. But equally, I don't think everything is just copacetic either. Um, so yeah, Adam says Saka and Odegaard's performance is dropping off. To me, seems like a result of going from Partey and Xhaka to basically Rice doing a two-man job. Partey, Odegaard, Saka used to link so well, and maybe it is just as simple as getting Partey back in the team. But my concern about that is that when Arteta had the opportunity to play Partey in midfield with Rice from the beginning, because even though they weren't that great of sides, we did, like, against Nottingham Forest, we started off with an easy run. We started off with Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and Crystal Palace, so those are 3 games that he had the personnel, even with Timber out, he had the personnel to play Partey and Rice together, and he played Partey at right back. Now, everybody was like, "Oh, that's because we need an extra man, to break down the deep blocks." No, against the deep blocks, you probably just need better players that can receive the ball under pressure, pass the ball in between the lines. This extra role that Havertz was doing wasn't really working. Nothing was really clicking in those first 3 games. We were getting the results, but nothing was really clicking. So, if Arteta's initial idea wasn't just to play Partey and Rice together, then what was the idea? Because it couldn't have just if it was just Havertz was going to play this off the ball role, and we were just going to disband the whole Xhaka thing. What Xhaka was adding was a lot, and everything was just going to go through Zinchenko or Timber. Like, I just don't know what he was thinking. Like, I really genuinely don't. So, but yeah, I agree with you about the two-man job that Rice is doing at this stage. Like, he's doing a lot. He's trying to do the DM and trying to be the box to box and get into the attack. He's doing too many things. And as like in general, I do think a lot of our players are doing a lot of shit and they could maybe simplify the role a little bit more. Like I don't want to see Tamiyasu as our striker. Like that's not really what I'm trying to see. So yeah, like maybe it's just as simple as getting Thomas Partey back in the team. But Thomas Partey is not fit enough, So what are you gonna do when he's not there? What are you gonna do when he's not there? So yeah. Um let's see. Let's see. Steve says, Line good for her. You guys are talking to each other. Philip says, I'm not gonna lie, Soboslai would have been absolutely amazing signing for us. We would have had an aerial presence that Havert provides, but not that the offense play would be fire. We needed to buy a midfielder. Keenan says Partey and Rice don't work either. Rice is def a 6. We need a box to box next to him. Uh, let's see. Payne says if Arteta is practical, he'll be forced to try Rice Partey double pivot when available. When is he going to be available? When is he going to be available? That's the key. Nicholas says, gotta admit, was kind of impressed with Kai today. Exactly, like he had a decent game. Keenan says replacing. Oh yeah. So yeah. Social Join says Partey is not the fix. He's only one progressive passer. We lost Xhaka's passing and the intensity from smart runs. Rice was supposed to learn from Partey, and he's playing 6.8 here. It's gone wrong. So yeah, exactly. Chosen One says, Jess, we need to feed on the upcoming schedule, a run of very favorable fixtures, and honestly, we probably should win them all. Got to rack up the wins before Anfield. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into some player ratings. I know people are mad, but like you guys, come on. Like, come on, you know? Yeah, you guys are saying like really mean stuff to each other, and I don't know if you guys are saying it about me too, but like, calm down. You might not like my opinion, but get over it. Mark says we are very rigid, very structured in our play. We are not playing outside the box, and the vision has become a void in the final third. Yeah, exactly. So we all know what the problem is, whether you want to admit it or not. So Arteta needs to get the attack right. Raya probably received the majority of the blame for the goal. During the watch along, everybody said it was like 100% his fault, and that's the reason why Ramsdale should be in the game, or whatever, and this proves whatever. If anything, if Raya ends up not being the right guy, it's proved that neither goalkeeper is good enough. So it's not justice for Ramsdale, whatever. Personally, for me, even if I felt like Raya could have done better, there were still punches that he got right, claims that he got right. His passing off in the back was fine today. We all switched off and thought the ball went out, and it didn't. And Gordon got a free run. Raya didn't get to it. Gabriel got fouled, and then they kicked it in the back of the net. But he didn't keep a clean sheet. And, I'll entertain you guys a little bit. And let's say that it is all on him. And that's the reason why we didn't win the game. Let's give him a 2, just for the sake of it. Like, I am so over the goalkeeper conversation. I feel like everything about it is disingenuous. Like, people were blaming Ramsdale for the entire West Ham game when it was just like not even all his fault. At some stage, you need to look at all the calamity of errors that happened prior to a goal. And then, even if the goalkeeper should do better, it could never be all on him. It could never be. There's so many times where it's just more than one person. And against West Ham, people blamed Ramsdale for every single one of those goals. He maybe could have done better for one or two of them. But my God, Ben White headed the ball in the back of his own net. And today, the entire team switched off because they thought the ball went out. Gordon gets a free run. Nobody goes out to the cross. It's just poor by everybody. Gabriel whiffs the ball. Like, there's so many things, even if Raya should have done better. But I'll entertain you guys. I'll give him a 3 just for the sake of it, because for me, how many times can we do this conversation? Like, it's not always just the goalkeeper. He didn't cover himself in glory, but he also wasn't the only reason why we lost. But because it's like we just want to do player FC all the time, it's boring. I'm so fucking over it, and I'm not gonna spend that much time on it either. We're gonna go to the next one. Saliba, again, had a really good game today. Definitely switched off for the goal. He was one of the main ones with his arms in the air, asking for the ball to be out, which is so unfortunate because I think he was probably one of our better players and looked very good. Like Ben White passed the ball back to him poorly more than once, and he was able to wiggle out of pressure. He was doing Saliba things, but we didn't get the clean sheet. And again, when you're playing so well defensively and you pretty much limit Newcastle to, I mean, they had no shots on goal in the first half. We limited them so much, and they were toothless. They didn't have anything going for them either. The attack has to capitalize on it, and we didn't, and the margins didn't go in our favor. So I'm gonna give Saliba, I don't know. It's hard to give him. I'll probably give him like a 6. I don't know, like because we didn't get the clean sheet. I don't think he really made that many. I don't think he made that many mistakes or any mistakes, if that. But it's hard because I don't think anybody really played that well. Saliba was good though. Like, I'm gonna give him higher than that. It doesn't feel fair. I think he was actually closer to like a 7. Saliba was good. It just was one moment. It's crazy. Anton Dunn says, still got the El Neni ass picture. Boy says 8 for Saliba. Maduya says 7. Mark says, I think Saliba and Gabriel 7 each. Wilson did not have a sniff on goal. They did their job well. Again, barring the goal we conceded, they were fantastic. It's so crazy. Nostradamus says the goal should not come into effect with the player ratings. Here to there says the defense overall was solid. Exactly. Like, it's so hard to like give the defenders a poor grade because I just don't really feel like they had a bad game. I thought the bigger part of the story was the fact that we couldn't create any clear-cut chances. So, Saliba and Gabriel for me will probably get a 7. The one thing I'll say about Gabriel though is that he has to start playing the game and stop playing the refs. There's times where it works and other times where it doesn't. And I think because he does the going down kind of easy to try to win the ball or like win the foul, maybe he doesn't get the rub of the green for the Gordon goal because maybe they just think that he went down soft. And if we're honest, Gabriel does it quite a bit where instead of playing the game, he tries to play the refs. And sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't. But I would just prefer for him to just like kick the ball out, or even like when he's in the box, instead of trying to show the ref that he's being held, go to it and head it in the back of the net or try to, sometimes I think we try to be a little bit too clever and we get caught out. Today it didn't work out for us, but they both get a 7. Ben White, not sure if I feel like he had a good game. Like I think he should have went out for the cross. He had one really good sliding like block. Like he had one of those in the first half that I think saved a goal. But again, it was a part of a defense that really shut Newcastle off. It was really a 1-goal game and it didn't go in our direction. It's a tough one. You guys will have to let me know about Ben, what you guys think. Let's see. Nito says 5 for Ben White. Mark Neighbor says the lack of concentration from the back 5 for the goal misleads someone who did not watch the match. The more pressing matters in the final third. So hard for me to look beyond our lack of attack. Lucas says it was poor, not much in attack. Switched off for the Gordon on back post, and I blame him for the goal. Yeah, there was also the chance where if they had done better with it, they probably would have put it in the back of the net. There were several times where I just don't think Ben White was fully switched on. And is there something with our players when they're in contract talks where they just completely lose their mind? Because Odegaard, when he was in contract talks, just it was like he had a couple of games where he just wasn't good enough. Ben White, they just switch off when they're in contract talks. It's so weird. Philip says 5. I remember thinking during the game that White was out of form and has been for a whole now, then turned off for the goal. It's crazy because like when we're starting to talk about 6 players, maybe more than that out of form, I think that starts to become a real problem. Yeah, so like I thought, I didn't think Ben White was as good as everybody else. I'm going to give him a 5 too because Yeah, but if Ben White is out of form, Zinchenko's out of form, Jorginho's not that great, Kai is in and out, Odegaard's out of form, Saka's out of form, Martinelli's out of form, Nketiah is patchy. What are we doing? Is that the team or what is it? Tamiyasu, I thought, had actually a really good game. But again, I don't want Tamiyasu being my main goal threat. I don't want Tamiyasu making all the runs into the box. I don't want us, it's such like the tactic of our left back being our number fucking 10 and our striker is actually starting to get on my nerve because watching Zinchenko make those third man runs against Sheffield did not impress me at all because that should be Emil. That should be Kai. It wasn't. Like, what are we doing? What is the tactic? Like, I don't get it. That being said, I think Tomiyasu had a good defensive game. I think he tried to get stuck in. I think, again, like, he was solid. He was really good. Like, he did his thing and deserves to keep his place. But this idea that our left back needs to be our one and only, nah, man, we got to do something else. We got to do something else. We got to do something else. Lucas says Tommy, when for not crossing the halfway line to second striker. Mark Neighbor says Tamiyasu, our main goal threat, is just about sums it up. Lioneye says the right hand side is officially dead currently. Steve says Tommy Cheekbones 3. I don't know what that means. Andrew says 6. Nostradamus says Tamabasu 6. Yeah, I mean, he's being like, just let him defend. Like, I don't know. Um, So yeah, Tamiyasu main goal threat shouldn't be, but keeps his place as far as I'm concerned. Jorginho, I think, did a lot of passing backwards, passing sideways. Didn't really boss the game the way that he did the first time around, but I didn't think that he would because the game is different. We don't have anybody to hit centrally. Our forwards are not moving. There's so many times where what really frustrated me more than anything is that we had them running towards their goal, which is what you want from a defender because you get corners, they kick it in the back of their own net, they do poor clearances. That's what you want, running towards their own goal. And instead of Saka or Martinelli taking it to the end line and crossing it into somebody or getting a cutback. They kept cutting it back and passing it to Jorginho. And then once you do that and Newcastle get their line set again, then everything is in front of them. And he would try to chip it over to Martinelli or Saka, and it would just go out the end line. What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't really get it. It just annoyed me. And it's something that I feel like Arteta is telling them to do. Like, I don't think, they're saying, "You know what? This is what I wanna do." I feel like they're doing what Arteta's telling them to do. So, he was pretty non-factory. Um, he wasn't, like, the worst, but he also wasn't great. So, what is Arteta telling them to do? That's my question. Nostradamus says, "Jorginho actually did well, enough as our wide men and striker didn't do much. Georgie 6.5. Andrew says Jorginho 4. Social Join says we don't have a striker that our attacks with raw pace. John says, why is Partey always getting injured? I don't care. Lucas says, still think he could be better on the ball, especially in the first half. He should have done better with some of the forward passes. I think some of the things that, he would get the ball and there would be space to like turn and punch it forward. And I just don't think that maybe our team is just not playing with confidence right now. Because a confident player, I think, takes it, turns, punches it forward. But we're being very regressive and negative and pragmatic in everything that we're doing right now. And that might be just like, you know, lack of confidence or something. We're not playing with confidence. Nico says Arteta just went wild on his press conference, feeling the pressure. Figure out your midfield, buddy. You set this up. Like this is I can't really feel bad for Mikel Arteta right now because he has had full carte blanche in the transfer window to set up his team. He had a good team from last season that he just needed to build upon. And we haven't really got going, so he has to figure it out. I think he has enough resources and enough quality in this team where we don't have to just be like, well, you know what, until he gets Partey and Jesus back, it's just, no. You bought Jorginho, make him work. You bought Havertz, make it work. You've kept Eddie all this time, make him work. This is not something I can really feel sorry for him on. Like, if we were creating tons of chances and our forwards were just missing it, it was an off day, then yeah, maybe I could see him being really disappointed in like the referees and stuff like that. But nah, like he has to really look at himself today. Not feeling the Arteta excuses today. Um, Havertz, probably our shining light. I did like that he made that one tackle and got the three yellow cards in return. That was good. Arteta needs to figure out a way to build on this. I know some people are probably, oh my God, he was just so bad. But he wasn't today. Watch with your eyes and not with your agenda. He was not bad today, actually. He was pretty good. He created some chances. I like when he got to the end line, he crossed it in instead of cutting it back and playing it safe. I think you have to figure out a way to build on this. And if Odegaard continues to be injured, then you're going to have to play Havertz, and that's a good opportunity to get him going. So yeah, thought he was good. Thought he was one of our better players. I'm gonna give him a 7. Build on this, my friend. Build on this because you have to work. Your manager's life depends on it. John says, Jess, can you imagine City playing against this team today? They would have annihilated this team. I don't know. They played against us the other day without Saka and with Jorginho and Rice in midfield, and Zinchenko at the back, and they lost. So um, I don't know. Are you talking about Newcastle? Kosi says the ref pretty much was wearing black and white. Steve Barrow says we need to sign Willian and Cedric. Boy says 7 for Havertz. Andrew says Havertz 6, his best performance of the season and about time. I like that. That's true. Philip says Havertz best game so far. Got to build on it. Cannot let this just float away. We've seen this with other players where then they're dropped the next game. You know, Mark Neighbor says, think this was Kai's best game in our shirt, 7 for me. And he went away from home to Newcastle and played really well. So it's not much because obviously like we didn't win the game, but it's enough for me to be like, build on that. Eddie did some good stuff, did some not so good stuff. I think ultimately, are you surprised that he didn't score away from home when he has a terrible away record? No, not really. I'm not shocked by that at all. Am I shocked that he wasn't able to influence the game? No, not really. He's playing against big center backs that are not going to take him seriously at all. We just need a striker. He needs a striker. Um, we need a striker. We need something else. We all kind of know that. And Eddie is playing more football than he probably should for Arsenal, but Jesus could not stay fit. And so we're seeing a lot of Eddie and we're seeing a lot of Jorginho. And so Arsenal need to figure that out. But he was just whatever out there. I'm gonna give him a 4. Like he won some fouls, but ultimately in games like this, we mostly talk about what Eddie does in our end of the pitch instead of what he does in their end of the pitch. And I think that that's just what it is. Mark says Eddie 3 for me, really struggled, no influence on the game or in the final third. However, on the flip side, no one gave him even a sniff of a chance. Exactly. F says Eddie 3 tried, but that air shot volley sums him up. That was funny. Lucas says was decent, dropping deep actually and pressing, but he just can't influence the game in the box against better teams. I agree. Andrew says Eddie 4, he's so inconsistent, it's time to go. So it's just I'm not shocked by this performance by Eddie, but I'm finding it harder and harder to be mad at him or disappointed in him because he's a backup striker that I feel like should be playing at a mid-table team. So when you get mid-table results from a mid-table striker, what do you expect? Arsenal either need to buy another striker or buy another striker or buy another striker. Let's see, Martinelli really struggled today. Was very similar, like Saka and Martinelli's games were very similar to what it was against Chelsea, where they just couldn't get by their man. They weren't really getting put into dangerous positions. And again, it's kind of like that. Is it the chicken or the egg or whatever? You know what I mean? Where is it that they were poor or was it that the team around them couldn't get them the ball in dangerous positions? Like, were they in dangerous enough positions and they should have done better, or were they not in dangerous positions enough? I think it's a little bit of both. But, as long as Martinelli and Saka are not in good form, they're not going to bail Arteta out. So, they need to figure something out. Martinelli did well to create a spark against Manchester City, but really our strikers are attackers, it's all few and far between. It's a little bright spot here, it's a little bright spot there, it's a 20 minutes here, it's one move there. But I don't think any of our attackers have had complete games more than once this season, except for Gabriel Jesus. I thought Gabriel Jesus had a complete game against PSV and had a pretty complete game against Sevilla. I think everybody else has been so patchy, and maybe it's the injuries, maybe it's not, but maybe Martinelli's just missing Xhaka and Saka is missing Partey and Odegaard or whatever. But without them being on form, what are we going to do? Because if you take those forwards out and you put other players in, Arteta's not going to adjust the tactics for those players to thrive. So we're stuck. Um, Martinelli had, I thought, a poor game. I didn't like his body language. I thought he was very frustrated, where you need to keep a cool head and keep yourself in the game. And I think he pretty much took himself out of it by being so frustrated from very early on. But again, is it the chicken or the egg? Kasi says Martinelli got little support and he was double teamed. Same with Saka on the other wing. Let's see. Adam says Arteta has to spend in January and spend very wisely. Midfield is a huge priority and arguably more than a striker, which is still a huge area we need to address. Mark Neighbor says Martinelli, 4, did a lot of running, but he always does. Pot shot first half straight at the keeper. Did not take on his man. It was nothing performance, not awful, but nowhere near good enough. Exactly. Owen says, problem with us is teams don't fear us through the middle, especially with Eddie up top. So our wingers will always see 2 or 3 players exactly. And when you don't have your creative players like Odegaard and Kai Havertz and Emil Smith-Rowe making darting runs in the midfield, because what I don't like is I just feel like our 8s just sit there and they don't make dangerous runs into the box. If they did more of that, like in the second half, at the end, you saw Havertz on the left-hand side was making those runs, overlapping, underlapping, and they need to do more of that. Our 8s need to get involved in the attack. If the attack is literally just Saka and Martinelli and Zinchenko, we're not going to do enough. I need my 8s to be creative and get in the box and get into tight areas and receive the passes. They're not doing it. Social Join says Martinelli hasn't run in behind since the Everton disallowed goal. That's awful. Well, Sevilla he did, but I get your point. I get your point. Let's see. Sub performances are like Saka was okay. Not even. He was just like Martinelli to me. Totally marked, completely nullified. Did not take on his man. Consistently passed it back to Jorginho, which was actually infuriating me. I'm like, can you take your man on? Why are you afraid to take your man on? Is this instruction, or are you lacking confidence, or what it is? He had one opportunity in the first half where he is in that really good spot on the edge of the 6. And instead of just taking a touch with his right and slamming it into the back of the net, he tries to cut it back on his left and gets it taken off of him. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? 4 for him as well. Until those 2 are back in form, or we figure out a way to get them the ball a little bit more, it's going to be long, y'all. Anton Dunn says 3 for Saka. Lionide says Saka had a poor game. And Philip says Martinelli 5 was shocked when after Livramento halted his first dribble, he has stopped trying to get past. Andrew J says Saka 4 fell asleep at a crucial moment. So yeah, poor game. What else? And Declan Rice, probably our best player again. It's getting to the point where, he needs to be supported. The players around him need to start stepping up. The players around him need to just say, you know what? The thing I like about Declan is that no matter what's going wrong, he still fights. And I think some of our players take the easy way out and just say, you know what? It's not going well for me. I'm going to pack it in. I'm going to do bad fouls. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to slump down. I'm going to blame my teammates. And what I like about Declan is he always leads. Arsenal need to grow a thick skin and quick. Even if you're not loving the system and the system is not allowing you to thrive the way that you want to, that doesn't mean that your performance is not your responsibility. The tactics are Arteta's responsibility. Your performance is on you. And I think no matter what, Declan's being asked to do multiple roles, whether he's really good at them or he struggles a little bit, he still performs. Your performance is on you. And so, best player on the pitch today, um, probably besides Havertz and Saliba. So, 8 for me, fuck it. He's just he's our best player. Has been this season. Needs to be for 100 million, but I think it's pretty clear who our best player has been this season and probably our best player right now. Saliba up there, but Saka and Martinelli just haven't really switched on, and Odegaard is also having a poor season. So, you know, hopefully we get him some support before he breaks down, but good player, did a really good job, especially in the first half. Not at fault for anything really. Um, Needs his teammates to step the fuck up, you know? What can you do? Mark Neighbor, thank you so much, says, enjoy your Starbucks. Good to, God bless you for rewatching these woeful performances lately for your Patreon. Thank you. Jess, you are a glutton for punishment. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. But you do this because the sun will shine again. We'll start playing well again, I think, at some point. So, you have to go through, you have to take the good with the bad. You can't just only do the good. Adam says, Rice is the benchmark. I agree. Alf says, like Brandon said, Rice and Saliba the only ones who take responsibility. No excuses about the systems for their quality. It's obvious when the team is bad. Mark Neighbor says, Rice is a 7 for me. Works super hard, no faults. I agree. Social Join says, this Rice 6.8 thing is wasting him. Lucas says, I wish he took the shot after that run in the first half. I wouldn't have minded that at all. Andrew says, Rice 7. He's Mr. Consistent in this team around him that's not. It's insane how he's like him and Saliba are like our only players in real good form. That's not good. That's not good. So Arteta's on like I think on the edges of I don't want to be dramatic, but there's times where Arsenal go through these periods where nobody's playing well. And it never really happened last season. Last season, it did not happen at all. We had dips in form, but for the most part, you had at least 5, 6 players that were in form that could get you over the line or were scoring. When we played poor against West Ham and Liverpool and we let them come back in, when we played poorly against Southampton, there were still players that were able to perform. Right now, Arteta's on like the edges of us going through a poor period because none of our players are in form. And I think a lot of it has to do with the system. That's my guess, is our attacking players are not having fun because they're not getting the ball. You have Kai Havertz in there, and he's like a project all on his own. There's no Odegaard. There's a lot of shit going on. So he really needs to take hold of this, I think, because he's on the edges. He's on the edges, I think. There says our best player, 8 out of 10 performance. Adam says, yeah, I'm concerned Rice is going to get played into the ground in this two-man role. I am as well. Mark Neighbor says, Arteta, this is what Arteta said. We have to talk about the result because we have to talk about how the hell this goal was allowed to stand up. Yeah, I get that. I get that. I get his frustration with the goal because everybody thought it was out. Maybe it was out. We have to, the angle that I saw, it looked like it was out. It did. But they allowed it to stand, even though there was, the two-hand push on Gabriel as well. There was a lot of things that came together to make that goal what it was. So I can understand Arteta really focusing on it because from his perspective, the way he set up for a draw, I thought, and he almost got it, and we didn't get it. He set up for a 0-0 draw. He definitely did not set up to score goals. So he just missed out on the result that he probably wanted. And he can probably justify it by saying like, it was a very it was a very suspect goal. But equally, I still think Arteta needs to take some of the blame here as well. Um, I do. I think he needs to take some of the blame, and I'm sure he is. Social Join says last season our dips and forms, was low energy levels, and we have a lot of we have a lot of players out of form. I haven't seen all of our players out of form like this at one time. Jordan says we need to buy a better midfielder in Jan to partner Rice, someone comfortable moving the ball from a deep, isn't a wimp ball. J20 is all right from the bench, but we need another starter. Ahmed says, "It's like the Diaz offside goal when he was onside. I'm very sorry for all the Arsenal fans." Um, it's not like I really wanna see it again. I really wanna see it again. Um, I wish we had the other angle, but I'm sure the other angle, is not available, like the over angle. So the one that we saw that the VAR was using, it looked like it was out, so it's a tough one. It really is. It's a tough one to take because I think he played for the draw. Boy says he can't be going for nil-nil. That's before the game started, remember we spoke about this. I was like, what does it look like he's going for? He put 2 DMs out there. He had Tommy out there. He had Eddie out there. He basically had 2 attackers out there. He had Martinelli and Saka out there. So he was playing for the draw and he almost got it. But that's what happens when you play on the margins. Um, Adam says, um, I reckon a top quality partner for Rice would take him up another level. He'd have more freedom as well. I would just love to see Partey and Rice get a run of games. I would too at this stage because if that could really help us. If honestly, if Jesus and Partey could play 5 or 6 games in a row, that would probably help us a lot. And maybe looking around, as a player, I remember like, and obviously I didn't play at this level, but if you had really good players around you, you stood up a little bit taller. You really thought that you could get the job done. But when you all are kind of looking around and you're wishing somebody else was out there, you're feeling like this player is not good enough, or, you know, if we get one chance, is this player going to put it in the back of the net? It does damage your confidence a little bit, especially when you're not playing that well right now as well. So I can definitely see Partey and Jesus with their authority and the fact that other teams actually really respect them, that giving everybody a boost. But again, waiting for these 2 players to become fit when we're a quarter of the way through and they've played a handful of games is a dangerous game. It's a really dangerous game, because I don't think we should be playing this game really at this stage. In terms of substitute performances, I thought Trossard was just whatever. Like he came out there and kind of like made it shake a little bit, but some of his dead ball delivery was really poor. Um, so he didn't really make anything happen. I'll give him a 5. Like, I could really just give everybody who came off of the bench a 5. What was it? It was Zinchenko, Trossard, and Fabio Vieira. They all came on and all did very little. I thought Zinchenko is so out of form. Like, something needs to happen with him. I know some people are like, you just need to go ahead and sell him, get rid. I don't know if you have to get rid of him. I think Arteta needs to figure out a different way to use him, um, and set him up for success. Fabio Vieira and Trossard, it's like you don't know what you're gonna get. Sometimes you get, oh my gosh, they changed the game, and other games you get this. Um, so yeah, all of them probably I'll give a 5, 4, 5. It is what it is. Philip says, "Just on Sky, they thought it was out. They didn't have the right angle, and the one they had looked out. Then the ex-ref said he thought Gabrielle was fouled, so it seems like we got robbed." Fair enough, so we can take that to the bank. We got robbed. Nabil says, "We can't talk about the if, we can only talk about the now. We have to be realistic." And so, yeah, um, there's obviously the goal situation, and me and Lee, Gunnar Lee are gonna talk about it more on the Patreon pod, um, tomorrow. It'll come out on Monday. But, and we'll talk about, the fallout from this and, you know, the lack of, clarity on that goal. But because I'm just never somebody that focuses so much on the refereeing decisions, and I feel like sometimes things go our way and other times they don't, I tend to focus a lot more on what we could have done. And so I'm willing to buy into the idea that, maybe VAR didn't get it right. I think we should have been playing against 10 men. I've said that I think Bruno Guimaraes should have been sent off and the goal is suspect. So and the margins didn't go on our way. And these big games, they are tight. Sometimes they're a little bit edgy. It went our way against Manchester City. It didn't go our way against Newcastle. But I still have a lot of questions around the way that we're playing, and so that will always be my biggest concern. But yeah, like, we just needed, a better angle on that. I really want to see if it was out. It looked like it was out though. Lionite said Havertz. at least put up a fight. Worst players around him. We always only have like one attacker attacking, one attacker doing the business. That's it. Off the radar says Saka isn't worthy of your hoodie today. Um, I mean, I love Saka, so, when players go into bad runs of form, I'm not just gonna chuck them away. I do feel like we can be a little bit harsh, like Saka, Martinelli, everybody is just in poor form. I think they need to step up and they need to look at themselves in the mirror, but I'm so sure Saka is gonna come back into form. Mikel says, "I'm angry that the referee and VAR, I'm sick of that shit. That was never a goal. First, the ball was out. Second, the push on Gabrielle. How hard is the VAR?" I think in general, they just everything kind of went in Newcastle's direction. I really was very I really didn't understand how Bruno Guimaraes only got a yellow card in, like, the very end of the game. I didn't really understand how they didn't see the elbow. I know they saw it, but they didn't care to go back because it would have changed the game. This whole thing where, like, when Arsenal is playing, we don't wanna give the opposition red cards is really starting to grate on me, and it's really starting to grind my gears because if that was an Arsenal player, they would have sent us off. Um, but the way that the goal happened, there's so many different factors, and I do feel I can understand why people feel like we were robbed. Um, so yeah, it's not a good day for Arsenal. It really sucks. It does. Matt G says Arteta will get a fine for that comment, and those refs will be back next week. There's no accountability. There's no apologies. Lionel says Bruno straight out of the favela. Social Join says home side advantage boxing rules. Adam says Partey is like two players. He creates space for himself, links up, finds the right pass, and is mobile. It seems like our transitions have slowed down and are not as effective without Xhaka and Partey. Well, shit. You sold Xhaka, which I understand he wanted to leave, and you replaced him with Havertz, and you're relying upon somebody who has never maintained their fitness. Even if that's the truth, I find that game plan to be very suspect from the manager. If you feel like Partey is super important, which I don't think he believes he's as important as you guys do because of the decisions that he's made up until this point. But if you knew that Partey was super important and you knew that, Xhaka was super important, why did you buy Havertz? And why didn't you buy another midfielder to replace what Partey does? Because you know, you can't you can't you can't rely upon him. Nabil says Arteta is unfortunately rigid with his tactics, similar to how some people were saying Eddie Howe will eventually leave for an elite coach. I think there's a lot of time for Arteta. I think there's not a lot of time for Arteta. I'm sure that me and Gunnar Lee are going to talk about this because that conversation is definitely creeping into my group chats. It's creeping into my mentions, into my comments. If Mikel Arteta does not win a trophy this season, what should happen? I think he's incredibly safe, and I think he's so safe that they'll offer him a new contract. That's how safe I think he is. But in terms of the fan base, I think the fans that go to the games are pretty happy with what they've seen. I think they're very happy with Mikel Arteta. Fans online, though, it's the tide is going to turn very quickly. All it's going to take is another loss or so, going out of the Champions League, something like that. It's on the edge to me. So, but the online fans don't represent all fans, and I think people have to remember that I remember I saw a poll from The Athletic, at the end of last season, how, if fans were happy with Arteta and where the club's direction, and 75% said yes. So, we know that we're nowhere near an Arteta out. And I think people are a little bit, um they have to remember Arteta has been here for a while now, and he's built up enough of a following and he's done enough to make people happy about at least the direction that I think it's gonna take a lot more than just a loss against Newcastle and going out the Carabao Cup. But it is a conversation that's starting to creep in, to my group chats and stuff like that. And it's not something that I feel like we'll be able to avoid. But what I'm hoping is that Arteta can figure this out before it becomes a real topic of conversation because I don't really want to talk about it. I don't really want to get into Arteta out, but we all know this is an important season. Social Join says, yeah, the U-shaped possession because we don't have players that can play in the pocket, and we have lost a lot of progressive passes from Xhaka and Partey. We definitely have lost a lot of that, and we did not replace it at all, in any way, shape, or form. And you don't really want Odegaard making those passes. I think Odegaard dropping deeper to do more of that role to me doesn't fill me with any sort of excitement either, because we know Odegaard's best role is the pass before the pass. We know that Partey and Xhaka were doing all the like build uppy stuff with Zinchenko, and then Xhaka would find that little run, and then it would go to Odegaard, and Odegaard would find the pass before the pass because we were doing the cutbacks. But everybody's playing these weird different roles this season, and nobody's playing at their best. Adam is saying Odegaard needs freedom. Our eights, our tens, they need freedom. They need to feel like they can create. And I thought Havertz looked like he had a little bit of freedom today, but I would just love for Arteta to take the damn handbrake off and start to allow our creative players to do what they do best, so that Saka and Martinelli can get some service. Because what we're looking at now is like scared ball, and it's not working. Nuances of Fate says Arteta and Ida Ball aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Might as well get used to it. Lucas says, I don't know how to solve this. We will get points because we have a good schedule, but I worry for December. You know what? I think I want to end there too, because like Lucas makes a really good point there that, this was a really difficult game. It is what it is. We just have to suck it up, take it. We lost. Whatever, we sit third, whatever, we could finish fifth at the end of this, but at the end of this week. But coming up, we have Sevilla at home. Got to win that game because that basically puts us into the next round, and we need that. Then you have, Burnley at home, Brentford at home, Lens at home, Wolves at home, Luton away. Those are all games that we should be winning. And those are games where Arteta is going to have to figure out what we're doing from an attacking sense. Before we get to Aston Villa. So basically after Luton, we need to be clicking on all cylinders. Once we get to Aston Villa, that's when things get difficult again. We have to go to Brighton, we have to beat Liverpool at home, then we play West Ham again. So you're right, we have until about December to figure out our lives, and hopefully we get some of our players back. Hopefully we get Jesus and Partey. But even before that, I think Arteta needs to really figure out how he wants to play, and if this style of play, this handbrake on is serving us, So yeah, somebody's saying the Brentford game is not at home. It's away, but still, we should still win that game. I think. It's still a very winnable game, very winnable schedule. Let's see. Nabil says, I think a change of tactics and system could do something different to make the team unpredictable. Play players in positions that suit the system as well as themselves. I agree. Mark says it was never going to be easy today. If we compare the reaction to the lineup before kickoff, we actually shocked people. There are things to iron out for sure. We all know. Neil says with Jorginho and Havertz in midfield, we're done for. Without Mo and Partey, we can't compete in the midfield at all. Again, you definitely, like, Arteta has a job on his hands. I'm sure he's really pissed off, but if you guys want to talk about this more, we're definitely going to put out a juicy pod for you guys on Patreon. If you guys want to be a patron, you guys can sign up. The link is in the description. And it's basically just patreon.com/SheKnowsArsenal, $4 a month. And we do the post-match pod there. We do previews, we do rewatches, all that kind of stuff on there. Extra bonus content for you guys. And that's going to be the next bit of content that comes out on the channel. If you guys want to talk more about this, and I'm sure we're going to get into the nitty-gritty about what is going on with our attack, because it's still a bone of contention, I feel like. But maybe I'll go live tomorrow too, depending on how much time I have, because I'm sure people will want to talk about this more. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know it wasn't fun because we didn't win. It is what it is. But like the video, subscribe to the channel on your way out. And enjoy the rest of your weekend, because I'm about to enjoy the rest of my weekend. My best friend's coming over, and child, if Arsenal are not about to ruin my day, okay? Mark gave me $5 so I can go get me a pumpkin spice. I am doing that. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.